Well, joining me now to discuss some of the major stories of the day is Nick Cater, Senior Fellow at the Menzies Research Centre. Nick, thanks for joining me and Happy New Year in advance, in case I don't get a chance to talk to you a bit later. But let's start in the United States tonight, where former President Jimmy Carter has died at the age of 100. The former peanut farmer and Democratic leader served as president for one term from 1977 before being swept away by Ronald Reagan. Here was President Joe Biden offering some words of reflection. Have a listen.
Jimmy Carter lived a life measured not by words, but by his deeds. Just look at his life's work. He worked to eradicate disease, not just at home, but around the world. He forged peace, advanced civil rights, human rights, promoted free and fair elections around the world. He built housing and for the homeless with his own hands. And his compassion and moral clarity lifted people up and changed lives and saved lives all over the globe.
Nick, I want to start by asking you, what do you think President Carter will primarily be remembered for?
Oh, without a doubt, I think James, the Camp David Accords, the historic peace agreement between Israel and Egypt, which has stood the test of time. And we've just seen with the fallout from October the 7th, what an important relationship that is and how it stands firm and how it's one country in the region or one near neighbour which Israel can have a trusting and normal relationship with. Of course, he'll also be remembered, I think, for not being firm enough when it came to handling the Russian invasion of Afghanistan, and certainly not the capture of the US hostages in the US embassy in Tehran, which was still in progress when he left. It was up to Ronald Reagan to clean that up. But I do think one thing which has been overlooked about him in much that's been said today, I think he really paved the way for Reagan to end the Cold War. He changed the narrative towards the Soviets, towards one based on human rights abuses, the way they were treating their own people. And that was what, in the end, cut through and I think paved the way for, the historic ending of the Cold War under Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah, well, he's certainly been honoured by people from all sides of politics in the US, including Donald Trump, who gave a very nice tribute on X earlier today. I want to go back to local politics here, because analysis of quarterly polling trends is very interesting at the moment, Nick. It's finding Labor is losing ground in the nation's largest states in the lead up to next year's election. According to Resolve Political Monitor, the coalition is now leading Labor 38% to 29% when it comes to the primary vote in New South Wales and, would you believe it, Victoria. And while Anthony Albanese has a 2-point lead over Dutton when it comes to preferred Prime Minister in those states, on the national level, he's only 1 point ahead. So I got to ask you, on these trends, Nick, as big a hurdle as it would be for the coalition to jump, do you think they're on track to potentially make Albanese a one-term Prime Minister?
Well, that's the big question. I mean, I think it is certain, in my view, that they will lose seats and therefore enter minority government. I can't see how they can do anything but lose seats. Every first-term government since the war, including the great Robert Menzies, lost seats at their first election. John Howard lost 18 seats at his first election after his first term. So I cannot see a government as bad as this doing anything but going backwards. Will they go backwards far enough? Let's remember that the coalition probably need 18 to 20 seats to have any chance of governing in their own right, and probably 15 if they want to try and stitch a coalition together, which I'm not sure will be a good idea. That is a big, big ask. So, yes, Albanese won't be in charge of his own destiny after the next election. He'll have to seek some sort of coalition agreement, some sort of coalition partnership with the Greens or the Teals, or possibly both of them. But I think the idea is still a big, big ask for Peter Dutton, and he's going to need some momentum behind him. There's going to have to be even more momentum than there is at the moment.
Well, the way the Albanese government keep making mistakes, you wouldn't put it past them to put some more wind in Dutton's sails. I want to talk to you about end-of-year predictions. The Sydney Morning Herald has come under fire after publishing an opinion piece on Sunday in which their technology editor, David Swan, predicted that Elon Musk would be forced to part ways with Tesla next year. Mr. Swan wrote in the Sydney Morning Herald, after constant controversies and distractions, it will all come to a head in 2025 and Musk will be forced to hand over the reins at Tesla, a company many mistakenly think he founded. Now, Elon Musk didn't like that as a New Year's prediction. He responded on X, quote, I predict the Sydney Morning Herald will continue to lose readership in 2025 for relentless lying to their audience and boring them to death. So, Nick, I've got to ask you, in terms of those two predictions for the new year, which do you think will come true? Musk leaves Tesla, or the Sydney Morning Herald continue to bore their readers to death?
Well, the Sydney Morning Herald boring its readers to less and losing more readers. I mean, we know the trend is your friend, right? That's been going on since about, I don't know, 1899 or something. So, look, I mean, the Herald is destined to lose readers. That's a bold prediction, isn't it, by their technology writer? But they can't get their heads around the fact that a virtuous thing, in their view, something very saintly like an electric car, it could be produced by a man they detest like Elon Musk. It really messes with their heads. So I think he'll hold on to that company as long as he can, just to continue messing with their heads, quite apart from the fact I think it's been a fairly successful business for him.
I think you're absolutely right about why they don't like Elon Musk. Nick, I've got to go, but before I do, you wrote a great piece in The Australian today. You gave 18 predictions for the new year, which is very bold, I must say, of you. We haven't got much time left, but just give me your two big tips for 2025.
I predict that coal production around the world will hit a record ever. That's number one, despite the fact that the International Energy Authority said in 2015 that coal had already peaked. It will be record sales next year. That's the trend on that one. I also predict that we will produce in Australia far more coal than we did do nuclear power from windmills and solar, and that we will continue to export most of that coal, unlike wind and solar, which we don't export. So I think the idea of a renewable energy superpower, the great Chris Bowen dream, that's going to be on hold for another year.